just 38 years old, Nancy Daughtery had an infectious personality and a heart bigger than her curls and the glasses she wore.
She was a big presence in town. Everybody liked her.
A woman of substance, she was a nurse's aide and EMT driver.
She was always helping somebody up.
She served up cocktails at the local bar and loved to play softball. More importantly, she was a mother.
I could talk to her about anything.
This was up in Duluth at the Inger Tower.
But she wanted even more out of life. It was July 1986. She was separated from her husband and packing up to move to the cities to start a new life and go to school to be a paramedic.
She was going to further her career.
On July 16th, a friend who was helping her make the move came to her house in Chisholm, but something didn't look or feel right.
All of her shades were closed and the house was locked. And she never locked the house and the shades were always open.
Police did a welfare check and found Nancy inside the house, but she was not packing. She was not moving at all. She was on her bed, naked, having been strangled to death and raped.
Life-shattering. It was just, it was awful.
Investigators say disheveled items in the house indicated a struggle. She had fought for her life, but there were no signs of forced entry. For some reason, Nancy let her murderer in.
I would assume that it could be someone she knew or someone she was familiar with.
Her killer made a clear escape, even locking the door on his way out. But he left something behind.
There's DNA evidence from the scene.
And with that DNA in their possession, investigators were convinced it was the smoking gun that would lead them to Nancy's killer. In 1986, police did not have high-tech tools to analyze DNA like the ones you see now on popular TV shows. In fact, this case was one of the first in Minnesota to use DNA to try and track down a killer, something that piqued interest of the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and other agencies.
We had a task force, a 2-week-long task force stationed out of Chisholm, where we had investigators from the region and even across the state that came up here and just focused on the Nancy Daughtery case.
The investigation was extensive. Detectives took more than 100 DNA samples from people they considered potential suspects and also collected DNA from others who voluntarily gave them a sample, which was a long process.
Then you would have to take that to the lab and run it against the profile that we had made out of the evidence.
But finding the killer was not as easy as they initially thought it might be. Within a year, the case had gone cold. None of the DNA they collected matched the suspected killer. All of their leads led to nothing, and the BCA's cold case unit was unfunded and ran out of money.
And I think if that cold case unit was still, I think we'd be further along if not solved.
Police were out of answers and frustrated. But at the time, and even nearly 30 years later, it's Nancy's family who has suffered the most by not knowing all of the answers.
Just sends your whole world into a tailspin.
Well, here.
Her daughter Gina was just 18 at the time her mom was murdered, and not a day goes by when she doesn't think of her mother, and oftentimes is reminded of the milestones Nancy has and will continue to miss.
Well, getting older, you know, I start going through menopause, and you have questions like that. When I was pregnant, I had questions about that. Raising your kids, I have questions about that. My girls have missed out on having a grandmother, and that's been really difficult for me, so I'm kind of lost.
And 27 years later, investigators tell us they are still working on the case, and they, along with Gina, have not lost hope that Nancy's killer will be brought to justice.
Without a doubt in my mind that somebody knows something. They don't want to talk for whatever reason, but somebody knows something.
I think this can be solved, and it can be answers given to the family.
As soon as they find the man who matches the DNA found at the crime scene so long ago. With photojournalist Harry Baker, I'm Maya Holmes, KQDS Fox 21.